Perfect. Yeah, so quick little introduction for myself. My name is Hiruy Ephrem. I currently based out of Shanghai. I work in venture capital. Venture capital is the industry of investing in startups. I work with SOSV, which is the global fund, and I started off my career in China in the space. I used to work with a group of angel investors in Shanghai. And from my journey to working in China is very similar to that of maybe many folks here in this call. I studied abroad in Beijing a few years ago as a student. I got interested in China and Chinese, the language, in university or a little bit beforehand. I'm American by passport, but I was born in Ethiopia and was raised there for a bit, and then immigrated to the United States. And whenever I used to come back to Ethiopia, I used to see a lot of China involvement in the different sectors there. And so that kind of put interest in China in the back of my mind growing up through adolescence. And then when I went to university, I went to this college called Middlebury College, the US, which is known for terrific language programs. And that's when I decided to pick up Chinese as a language, in part just to get involved in what's going on with China and their expansion to Africa in the last couple of decades. And so through that interest and just being interested in Sino-African relations, decided to pursue a degree in international politics and economics. And that degree was a great degree offered by my college, which focused on politics, economics, and yet study language, yet study abroad. So for me, I studied Mandarin and I studied abroad in Beijing. And in my time in Beijing, I realized how amazing China's progression was and how many opportunities there are at the time. And China continues to evolve as a country and as a business space. And so upon coming back after my semester abroad, I entered at a Chinese company there called Beijing Niu Technologies, which I believe IPO'd in NASDAQ in 2017, I believe. So I was there right before their IPO year, and it was really good. It was a very eye-opening experience to have been able to work in a Chinese environment and use Chinese and leverage that. And through that interest, I decided I wanted to come back to China. But one of the challenges that I saw in coming back to China from abroad, from the US, is that it's tough to really come to China if you're not in China. You know what I mean? So I think folks here have alluded to the importance of networking and building relationships in the country and finding some sort of avenue, specifically to what you're interested in. So I was interested in general business, entrepreneurship, and stuff like that. And so while I was abroad in China, and while I returned back to school, I used that time to stay on WeChat and network as much as I can. And I did many calls with many people there. My target city was actually Beijing, but along the way, life happens, and I found myself back in Shanghai through an opportunity through someone that I knew, and that someone ended up being my boss at this angel investment group. Angel investing, as you guys might know, is high net worth individuals that invest in startups. And so I found that to be quite relevant to my professional goals, meaning I was interested in entrepreneurship at one point and still am. And therefore, being on the investor side of the table is something I found to be quite interesting and useful for my career. So I took the opportunity and did that for a couple of years and then transitioned over to proper venture capital here at SOSV. So that's sort of my story. And I also have a presentation here to explain what SOSV does and how we are involved in the China ecosystem. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, do a little presentation on our firm, and then hopefully I'll take the time in the end to answer some questions around how we operate. Cool. Alrighty. Awesome. So can everyone see my screen? Are we good?
Yes, all good.
Cool. Awesome. So yeah. So SOSV, might be good to maybe start with this slide first. SOSV is a global venture capital fund. We invest in multi-stage, we conduct multi-stage investments and work with founders from the early stage and continue to help them throughout their journey. So we have multiple offices around the world. We have presence in Shanghai, Shenzhen, are our China offices. We in Greater China, we have Taipei, we have Tokyo, Seoul, Cork, where our back offices for our accounting team, our legal team, etc. We have a team in New York, we have a team member in Delhi, and we have a team member in Kuala Lumpur. So we're quite distributed around the world. And we invest in four primarily verticals: cross-border internet and software, which means that we invest in companies that are leveraging the internet or have software solutions. We invest in hardware. We're the number one active investor in hardware. We invest in life sciences, so this like biotech, alternative foods, etc. And then we're also quite active in blockchain. So as a fund, we have $970 million assets under management, and we're getting pretty close to that $1 billion mark. So we're excited for that. We've surpassed 1,000 portfolio companies sometime last year and continue to grow. And as a fund, we have about 21% net IRR. So these are some of the few rankings that was given to us by PitchBook. So we're number 3 investor in the world as of last year. And then the year before that, I think we're actually number 2. During COVID era, we popped up to number 1 because we did a lot of investments in the COVID related space, COVID research and stuff like that. We're number 4 active investor in the US, number 10 in Europe, and number 5 in Asia and rest of the world. And specifically, when we look at Asia, our top key metrics are Southeast Asia. We're like number 8 in the region there. And we're continuously active in India. We're the number 5 active investor there, maybe number 3, depending on other rankings as well. And as of recently, we're the number 1 investor in Pakistan as well. And so my division, I work at Chinaccelerator and MOX. We are sister programs. We invest in cross-border internet, and where our value add at its core to one angle when you compare it to China, when you connect it to China, is we leverage a lot of the playbooks that have been used from China to scale, and use that playbook to advise our companies when they go to scale in their respective markets. So both programs are quite active investing around the world, but we do have concentrations in Southeast Asia as well as South Asia. South Asia being Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India, and we're further merging into the African continent these days. I think we're in the process of closing 2 companies there. And these are some more rankings from PitchBook, CB Insights about where we stand. Like I said, we're number 1 in hardware, number 1 biotech, number 1 in healthcare devices. We're quite active in commercial services, pretty active in agri-tech, number 1, and then we were quite active in media as well. We're the top 10% performing VC in the world, with our net IRR being 21%, which is quite good. And our investment thesis is quite simple. We have plenty of applicants that want to be a part of our program. We have a very curated way of picking top companies, and traditional accelerators, as you see, have very small bandwidth to work with the startups. We decide to drop the accelerator model and continue to be a platform VC where we work with our companies, hopefully till exit. And so that's been a way of getting us to deliver more value to our startups for their lives. And this is basically our investment funnel. And so we focus on many industries. We focus on digital, we focus on cross-border, so market entry and market expansion. And we have heavy emphasis on being growth-centric, which means we want you to start growing before you start fundraising, because that makes a lot of conversations with investors easier. And growth is really what propels you to provide your solution to your consumers, to your clients, etc. And furthermore, the more you grow, the less dependent you are on investment, which means less dilution, and therefore much better for the entrepreneur. So that's sort of our focus here. Going back to our multi-industry portfolio, we have investments. This is just from the cross-border internet side. We have investments all over. As you can see, education we have a few companies there, China Admissions being one of them. We invested in China Admissions, I believe, almost 5 years ago, and it's been a great relationship since. And yeah, so our investment comes alongside Perks, a program, and community. Community, we have approximately 500 plus mentors, of which I believe James C.O. Rich is one of our mentors as well. Our program is lifelong, so from the investment till exit, there's only work with our companies. And Perks, we have about $1.6 million worth of perks available to each startup. So startups that join our ecosystem, have access to all sorts of juice to be able to grow. And yeah, that's our ecosystem. From the China Accelerator side, we have perks that are more China specific. We also work with GAN. We're one of the founding members of GAN, Global Accelerator Network. And SOSV as a whole also has a set of perks that we make available to the entire portfolio. And our community, we have, like I said, 1,000 plus portfolios. So we have a pretty strong community of entrepreneurs, very strong community of mentors. Our partners are great. We have experts in residence. These are all folks that have done a thing or two in their careers that can advise our companies on all things from scaling up a startup, due diligence, accounting, tech. We recently onboarded a tech EIR, and as well as fundraising and financial modeling. And then our team, we have, I think at this point, we're at 35 people on our team, all dedicated to making sure that our portfolio is able to grow and add value there. My mentors, well, we mentioned 500 plus. These are all community members and also some of our partners here. We are active and working with incubators as well as corporates all around the world. These are our innovation partners. So we're lightly engaged with 200 plus multinational corporates around the world. And when I say lightly, that means that we have a relationship with them. We work with about 50 or so on a regular basis. And then 27, 26 are LPs in our fund. LPs means they invested in our fund. And so, yeah, so that's a quick overview as to how SOSV, Chinaccelerator, MOX works. We have a couple QR codes here, one for our Asia Startup Pulse podcast, which is great content that we publish upstairs in this building for things China related from all sorts of VC partners, innovators in space. And so if you're interested in podcasts and learning more about what's happening not only in China, but also in Asia globally, feel free to check out our podcast. And then also on WeChat, feel free to check out our official account if you want to get in contact to learn about what we have in store, what kind of activities we have planned. That's that. Happy to take some questions.
Thanks, Hiruy, for the presentation. Yes, there are
Indeed.
some questions for you. So I think
Mm.
the first one is this one. How has your international background helped with your career in China?
My international background. So it's tough to say. It's tough to pinpoint. This is like one of those things where it may have contributed, may have not. I think this is how maybe I would say it would have helped, because of my background in having lived abroad and understanding having multicultural experience. It makes life a lot easier when you're working with entrepreneurs from all over the world. So I'm on the investment team at Chinaccelerator and MOX, SOSV, which means I cover companies from all parts of the world and even geographies that I'm not particularly too familiar with. And so being able to know how to work with multicultural people from multiple backgrounds is helpful, and it's important because my job is not just analyzing papers and pushing papers. It's also a lot of relationship management. That means it requires a high level of EQ, which comes from being exposed to all types of people. To give you some context, I have, I think, 12 companies in India that I work with, 4 in Pakistan, another 4 in Malaysia, 3 in Indonesia. I have 2 in China, a couple in the US, couple in Europe, Spain, London, and 1 or 2 in Singapore. So I have companies from all over the world, and so being able to relate from people with many backgrounds is quite important, because sometimes at the early stage, communication and relationship building is very important, because that's what allows you to first build a relationship with the companies you're working with, and then allow them to better advise them, but then also work with them and gain their trust and some of the guidance we give to make sure the company continues to scale. So that's probably where I would put how my international background might have helped.
Cool. Thanks. There's another question also for
Mm-hmm.
you. So, what would you advise when one wants to approach you? I think she means wants to approach SOSV for an investment in the food and hospitality industry related field.
Yeah, so you can send an application to our website. So applications are usually the best place to send over uh, like business pitch materials. but I guess it's also important that we also have some fit, right? So the companies we invest in usually have some semblance of product market fit, which means they have clients, they have revenue, and they're looking to scale and grow. So usually these are the three, 4 points that we look at in our startups before we decide to even invest. So if your pre-revenue might be a little bit too early unless the opportunity is quite impressive. If your mm, so that's one thing to consider, and then also just make sure that also your materials and profiles and all that stuff is submitted, and feel free to also connect with people on our team on LinkedIn as well to make sure that your application gets seen and can get the attention it deserves.
Mhm. Great. So I think if you don't mind, could you later share your LinkedIn profile so any other participants that would like to connect with you or that would like to
Mhm.
connect with SOSV, they can get all the help they need as well.
Sounds great. Cheers.
Sounds great. Right. Thanks, Hiruy, for sharing